Hello, this is Huskins, your Forex mentor. Welcome to the daily review April 1st and the preview of April 2nd, 2013. Your daily dose of events that shaped the Forex markets. It was a nice lazy day today, but I have some interesting analysis summed up for you for the quarter. So hold on tight and let the journey begin. The thought for the day. This is very interesting. When opportunity comes knocking, some people complain of noise pollution. Let's not be those some people and let open the doors and let the opportunity come right in. The ISM Manufacturing Index for March clocked at 51.3. The big number of the day was disappointing. It was above the 50 dividing line between 50 is expansion and less than 50 was contraction, but it's also lower than most pessimistic guess among a dozens of economists polled by Bloomberg. So the economy is expanding, but not as well as what the economists thought it would. Now let's talk about China. The China manufacturing expands at fastest pace. That's what the PMI showed. So the world's second largest economy is also sustaining. Again, um, the expansion is at the fastest pace, but it was lower than what the economists were expecting. Sometimes you need to take what the economists have been expecting by a pinch of salt. It matters just for a few moments in the market, not much. Look at the overall picture. The number one economy, which is USA, is expanding. Number two economy, which is China, which is expanding. Now, the global central banks look beyond the US dollar. This is something very interesting. Now, the central banks are increasingly looking beyond the US dollar, yen, and the euro. Basically, there is, the International Monetary Fund uh, tabulates data of the central banks of the world. They divide it into three basic categories: the advanced countries, the industrialized nations, then the developing nations, and the undeveloped nations. So now they divide this and they look at the reserves of each and every central bank, and then they tabulate them. And one thing which is interesting is that uh, the central banks of other countries are expanding their Australian and Canadian dollars. So now Canadian dollars are not only sought by Canadians, they're sought by other central banks also. In the few years before all this crisis happened, there wasn't any major central bank which would want to have their reserves in anything other than the euro and of course the US dollar, and of course gold. So bad news for the dollar. You can see this Benjamin is a little sad out here. Okay, so the Australia, this is very interesting, and I'll tell you why it's interesting. Because Australia has cut the deal with China to trade in the Aussie dollars and the yuan, bypassing the greenback. Now, this is on top of similar arrangements between, China and Japan, China and Russia, China and Brazil, India and Japan, Iran and everybody. All right. So why is this um, important? Because normally everybody would convert their money through the US dollar, and I for one did not understand why would people do that. Why wouldn't India, while I was in India, why wouldn't India just trade with let's say China directly? They're just neighbors, so exchange each other's currency. Why would it have to be routed through the US dollar? Because uh, you know uh, India might not have use for the yuan, China might not have use for the Indian rupee, but everybody always needed the US dollar. So that's what the case was, and of course, that's the way it has always traditionally been. But now things are changing. People are at least to some extent wherein there is bilateral trade, wherein one country is not just the exporting country, um, like the case between Australia and China. China imports a lot of stuff from Australia, and Australia, of course, imports. I mean, the entire world imports stuff from China. So, at least to the extent wherein they can save money through through not going through the US dollar, they are actually doing it. Anything over and beyond their bilateral trade agreement, the net amount of that would be, of course, passed by the greenback. So this is very interesting because the value associated with um, the US dollar is so high currently, I'd say that there is at least a 25-30% premium or even more that because it is by default the world's default currency. If that tag was to be taken away from it, and if the US dollar had to stand on the merits of only and only USA, we'd have the US dollar fall by about 30%. That's in my opinion. And though it's not happening overnight, the market is eventually moving in that direction. Having said that, the dollar still ends the quarter strong. Now, the dollar ended up the first quarter up against nearly every major currency and against many minor ones too. Now, the only currencies to leg up on the greenback are the Brazilian, the Mexican, and the Swedish. So, and out of these three, I would bet my money on the Swedish krona. Why is that? Because uh, the central bank um, does not like to intervene, and it does not mind a weak krona or a strong krona. And we have been observing that for a very long time. It's not just lip service like Japan or any other country. They really are non-interventionists. That's a central bank. Of course, there are certain politicians who haven't yet spoken up, who might speak up in case the krona reaches new heights. But so far, if I had to bet my money on something going, continuing to go ahead, would be the Swedish krona. So now let's look at the preview for later today and for tomorrow. So I'm going to pull up the um, this is from my own website, and we had the USISM manufacturing release, which was yellow, which was a no trade. Um, this green is an interesting trade at 11:30 p.m. That's in a few hours from now. We'd have the Australian interest rate. Then we have the manufacturing PMI. I'm not very into it, especially it's at 4:30 in the morning for me. It's not a trade which has made any major profits in the last few months. So this used to be a sure cut, money in the bank kind of trade for a few years, and it has just fallen out of flavor right now. So I personally am not going to be trading it, but I've just marked it as yellow because I'm not dismissing the trade plan. Let's look at any other major news. On April 2nd, we have Italian manufacturing PMI. No, that's not all that important, even though if it is a red star. Um, and the Australian trade balance, nah, nothing else is, cuts the uh, would would be more than any noise in the market. So that's about it, guys. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye for now.